back. I wanted to start doing YouTube again. It was kind of like, I've been thinking about it for a while, but like didn't really want to pull trigger and didn't really have time. But I've been reading a lot lately and I want to tell you guys what I'm reading, so here we go. So when I review these books, there's quite a few of them for January. I'm just going to give you guys a quick plot point summary and then tell you my rating out of 5 stars, and then tell you my favorite quote because I feel like that might get you hooked, might get you reading. Okay, let's start. We're gonna go least favorite to favorite, and so I know this might have been a hot take a couple months ago, but right now what I'm seeing on TikTok is that everyone kind of feels the same way I do. This was the worst book that I read in January. So basically the plot of this book, oh, the sun's coming in now. Don't know if I like this. So basically the plot of this book is that in a futuristic world, this company Deathcast will contact you when it's the day that you die and tell you that it's your last day to be alive. So these two guys, Rufus and Emilio, get contacted, and they end up going on this like kind of not dating website, but like a friendship website for people whose last day it is so that they can like make memories on their last day. Anyway, they get connected through that and they try to like give each other an unforgettable last day, and it's just it's a good concept, but I gave it 2 stars because I didn't like the way it was written. I found the writing style very forced and just it didn't flow very well, and I just didn't love it. My favorite quote from this book is, "I may not be able to cure cancer or end world hunger, but small kindnesses go a long way." Okay, up next is My Dark Vanessa. Was a big hit a while ago, don't really know, it's still a Heather's Pick at Indigo, so if you haven't read it, give it a chance. I do want to preface this with a trigger warning of sexual abuse because this story is about a girl, Vanessa, who is sexually abused by her high school teacher. And then years later, another girl comes forward and says she also had the same experience. And Vanessa basically has to battle within herself and question whether she wants to stand up and tell her story or she just wants to stay silent and think, you know, that she was special and that he actually did love her when obviously he didn't. I gave this one 2.5 stars because I did like it more than They Both Die at the End. I think I'd like anything more than They Both Die at the End, but it did kind of go on a little long and it didn't really feel necessary, and I was just like, can this end? But my favorite quote from this book is, "People will risk anything for a little bit of something beautiful." Next. This was a reread. Okay, I read it when it was popular, back when I was in middle school, but Looking for Alaska, I remember it being one of my favorite books ever that I had ever read, and then I found it in like a secondhand bookshop here in London, and I just figured, why not give it another chance? It was $5, why not? So this story follows Miles Pudgehalter, who starts attending boarding school for high school. He's going into his 2nd year. Everyone else has already been there, so they already know each other. He meets this girl, Alaska Young, who he's absolutely infatuated with. But then something happens to her, and it's a whole mystery that he has to unravel. He's obsessed with last words and seeking the great perhaps, so it's kind of like introspective and like kind of philosophical if you're into that. It's definitely more of a mature read than I should have read in middle school. I gave it 3.5 stars. Probably the first time I read it, I would have given it 5 because I do recall it being one of my favorite books for years and years and years, but upon rereading it, it wasn't as great as I thought it was. But my favorite quote from this is something that I've thought about for years, and it's, at some point you just pull off the band-aid and it hurts, but then it's over and you're relieved. And obviously if you were on Tumblr circa like 2012, 2013, you know the iconic quote, "If people were rain, I was a drizzle and she was a hurricane." Also one of my faves, kind of cliche, but kind of obsessed with that. Up next, this one made me laugh until it didn't. Erotic Stories for Punjabi Widows follows Nikki, who is not very in touch with her Punjabi roots, but she volunteers to teach English to Punjabi widows, like the elderly of her community. But she learns upon entering the class that none of them can even read or write. So instead of teaching them English, the classes end up becoming a series of erotic stories that these elderly Punjabi widows come up with, and they get transcribed. But the community is very watchful and protective of these women, so Nikki has to try to hide that this is happening in her class. While all this is happening, her superior, Kulwinder, is dealing with the death of her daughter, and Nikki's also trying to delve into that and find out what really happened, and the women in her class know a lot more than they're letting on. I gave it 4 stars. It's a good concept. I like it. It was well thought out and all came together in the end, and it was pretty well written as well. My favorite quote makes me laugh a little bit. It's, "You can separate the idiots from the bloody idiots." The Paris Apartment, the new Lucy Foley, not gonna lie, read it in one sitting. 400 pages, gone. It was amazing. Basically kind of like a crime drama. This girl, Jess, appears at her brother's apartment. She's trying to look for him. He's not there. He's gone missing. After days and days and a couple of weeks, she finds out that everyone in the apartment kind of has something to hide. Everyone's kind of got something to do with it. And she's trying to figure out what it is. 4.5 stars. Honestly, twisted, captivating. Like I said, I read it in one sitting. This is actually an ARC, like an advanced reader's copy, which means it's not out in stores yet. I believe it comes out in March, so keep an eye out for that. I won't give any favorite quotes because I don't want to give too much away, but definitely keep an eye out for this one. It's a must read. If you like the guest list, this one's really, really good. I honestly liked it more than the guest list. It wouldn't be a booktube video without Miss Colleen Hoover. I read It Ends With Us in January and I loved it. I do want to preface this one with a trigger warning: sexual abuse, domestic violence. It was not a happy story at all. People told me it was devastating and it absolutely wrecked me. It basically follows this girl, Lily. It transitions back and forth between her past and her present. We follow her with her past love, Atlas, who she met when she was in high school. He was the great love of her life, but he disappeared on her. So now she's in Boston, I want to say. Can't really remember, but I think it's Boston. And she meets Ryle, a neurosurgeon who seems really great and really dreamy. And the way it's written makes you fall in love with Ryle too. But then he ends up being kind of shit. Their relationship spirals into like the darkness of domestic violence, and the whole time this is happening, Atlas is back in her life. So she's got to make a decision. Does she want to stay with Ryle, who literally is mean to her and doesn't ever want to have kids and doesn't share her dreams, or does she want to be with Atlas, who abandoned her and never came back for her? I gave it 4.5 stars because I read it in 2 nights and it just really captivated me and caught my attention and held it there, and I was just moved by this book. It also gives a really good insight into those dealing with domestic violence and helped me kind of empathize and understand where they're coming from more, because the way it's written, you also fall in love with this character who's essentially an abuser and you don't want him to be that, but you know in your heart that like she needs to leave him. My favorite quote is, "There's no such thing as bad people. We are all just people who sometimes do bad things." Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead is another one of those books that I was like, this is a funny concept, and then I read it and I did have a couple good chuckles at it. Basically follows Gilda, a 20-year-old lesbian atheist who's very anxiety prone. She stumbles into a Catholic church one day and gets a job as a receptionist, where she also finds out that the predecessor of her job was killed, and she begins unraveling that mystery and questioning like the priest and all that, and it's just like this whole thing. I grew up Catholic, so I found this hilarious. Obviously I get that it might not appeal to everyone, but personally it rocked my socks. Like, it was so funny. 4.5 stars. Like I said, personal connection to it, made me chuckle a little bit, and it's also very well written, made me think a lot about life and death and just the meaning of things. Everything matters so much and so little, it's disgusting, is my favorite quote from this one. If you've been on Book Talk for a while, you know this one. Broke my goddamn heart. Miss Sally Rooney does it again with her absolutely devastating story. It follows the complex friendship of Connell and Marianne from their time in high school, where they were just hookups. Marianne was very undesirable. Nobody really talked to her. Connell was very well liked. Follows them all the way through college, where the roles kind of reverse. Now Marianne's the really popular, understood one, and Connell's kind of the outcast, but they kind of always find their way back to each other. It's a very on-again, off-again relationship, and the fact that they're best friends just makes your heart ache and just want the best for them. 5 stars, like I said, devastated me to read, but was beautifully written, and also has kind of an interesting writing style that I've never really seen before, so definitely something to check out if you want a different kind of read. My favorite quote from this makes my heart sing a little bit. It's, I'm not a religious person, but I do sometimes think God made you for me. I also want to read a couple more Sally Rooney books this year. Beautiful World, Where Are You is one I really want to get my hands on, so this is definitely a good place to start. This book is one of my favorite books that I read all year. On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. It was actually the first book I read this year. And it follows the narrator, Little Dog, as he writes letters to his Vietnamese mother who can't speak English. And he's basically grappling with forgiveness, coming to terms with the fact that she abused him as a child, and that he had some questions about his sexuality. He ends up being gay in the story, has to hide it from his mother, and this is him kind of telling her everything that he's been through. 5 stars, terribly sad, beautifully written though. I've never really read anything like this. I kind of like my silly little lighthearted stories or my little crime dramas, but this was just all over an experience, a really, really beautiful experience, and something that I definitely never would have thought of otherwise. My favorite quote that I actually have highlighted in the book is, "I miss you more than I remember you." Finally, my favorite book of January. This might be a hot take. People on Book Talk either love this book or hated it so much. I fall into the category of I absolutely adored it. We Were Liars. Okay, hear me out. It's a teen read, but it was really good. The Sinclair family is very well off and hides all their secrets behind their wealth and their nice houses. One summer, and it is a very summer-heavy, aesthetically pleasing book. One summer, all their secrets come to light. People are not who you thought they were. Things happen. The truth is revealed. But it definitely gives me like heavy summer, like surfing on the beach, like cottage house kind of vibes, and I loved every second of it. This is another one I read in one sitting. The characters were great. It was beautifully written. I give it 5 stars. My favorite quote is just something to live by in this book. Be a little kinder than you have to. So that is all the books that I read in January. I know it's a lot. I also work at a diner and we were only doing takeout, so my job was just to sit there and read my book for 4 hours and wait for people to order, which was a lot of fun, but I got through a ton of reading material. I'll do another one of these videos in February, but I don't think I will have read nearly enough. I've already read one book and I wasn't crazy about it, so you'll probably see it at the beginning of next month's video. But until then, thank you guys for tuning in again. I know it's been a hot minute. I'm gonna be back with like fashion and poetry stuff and all that. I really want to delve into doing like visuals for my writing and videos for my poetry and stuff, so we'll see where that takes me. But until next time, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.